on to another functional aspect of the ecosystem, that is nutrient recycling. What we have seen so far indicates that flow of energy in the ecosystem is always unidirectional. Energy that passes through an ecosystem moves from one trophic level to another trophic level, gets converted from one forum to another forum, ultimately it is lost. Though energy is lost in the ecosystem, it does not affect the equilibrium in the ecosystem, because considerable amount of energy is always available. The other important aspect in the ecosystem is that flow of materials or nutrients. The flow of materials or nutrients in the ecosystem is always cyclic. So materials, chemical substances, nutrients absorbed by the living organisms from various sources in the ecosystem pass through the food chain, pass through the different trophic levels, but ultimately they will have to be returned back to the ecosystem. So flow of materials is always cyclic. We have seen examples in the form of food chain, food web and ecological pyramids for the unidirectional flow of energy. The cyclic movement of materials, nutrients, is what is called as nutrient recycling, and the examples for these nutrient recycling are what are known as the biogeochemical cycles. Biogeochemical cycles. Bio, living, geo, the non-living component, chemical cycles. So chemical substances, nutrients moving in a cyclic manner between the living and non-living components of the ecosystem. The carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, oxygen cycle, water cycle, phosphorus cycle, all these are examples of biogeochemical cycles. It is such biogeochemical cycles that are maintaining a state of equilibrium in the ecosystem. A biogeochemical cycle any biogeochemical cycle has two components. One component is called the reservoir pool. One component of the biogeochemical cycle is called the reservoir pool. Reservoir pool is that component where the chemical or the mineral nutrients is stored and made available to the living organisms. It may be present in the form of a gas, it may be present in the form of dissolved substances, or it may be present in the rocks. Accordingly, the reservoir pool can be either atmosphere, the gaseous environment that surrounds the earth, or the hydrosphere, all the aquatic ecosystems put together, or the lithosphere, the rocks present in the deeper sediments of the earth. Some chemical substances are available freely in the atmosphere in a gaseous form. For example, carbon is available as carbon dioxide. Nitrogen is available as gaseous nitrogen. Oxygen is available as gaseous oxygen. For the aquatic ecosystems, the nutrients are available in a dissolved state in the water bodies. Carbon is available as carbonates and bicarbonates. Nitrogen is available in the form of dissolved nitrates. Oxygen is available as dissolved oxygen. Some nutrients are available in a solid state in the form of rocks, carbonate rocks, phosphate rocks, sulfate rocks, and so on. So atmosphere can be a reservoir pool, hydrosphere can be a reservoir pool, or lithosphere can be a reservoir pool. The other component in a biogeochemical cycle is called the exchange pool. The exchange pool represents that component where the nutrient is exchanged in the trophic levels. Nutrient has been obtained from any of these components of the reservoir pool, and that nutrient is used and exchanged from one trophic level to another trophic level. Therefore, the exchange pool represents all the living organisms, producers, consumers, detritivores, decomposers, all the living organisms that are present in the biosphere. So atmosphere, hydrosphere and lithosphere form the reservoir pool. Living organisms present in the biosphere form the exchange pool. Then what is a biogeochemical cycle? A biogeochemical cycle is the movement of a mineral nutrient from the reservoir pool, atmosphere or hydrosphere or lithosphere to the exchange pool. The exchange pool, the trophic levels in the biosphere. So, a biogeochemical cycle represents the movement of a nutrient from the reservoir pool to the exchange pool. So it involves various processes by which the living organisms in the exchange pool obtain the nutrients either from the atmosphere or from the hydrosphere or from the lithosphere. So this process is what we call as fixation. Fixation, movement of a nutrient from the reservoir pool into the exchange pool. We talk about carbon fixation by plants, oxygen fixation by all organisms for respiration, nitrogen fixation by bacteria and blue-green algae. Fixation. After being utilized in the exchange pool, ultimately the nutrient returns back to the reservoir pool, and by various processes, and this is known as recycling. So there are two aspects in a biogeochemical cycle: fixation and recycling. Fixation involves many biological and non-biological processes. Recycling involves many biological and non-biological processes.